We've been working with the community for over a year to plan our Rails and Trails Park in downtown Corry to be an economic driver and a recreational asset for everyone. The artists we're going to meet today, we've been working with Andy for over a year, and Jessica and Nick, we just met this in 2022. They're going to be working on 2 separate projects for our park. Andrew is an international lighting designer based out of Pittsburgh, and he's going to be designing all of the lighting through the park. And Jess, Nick, and their partner Brad are working on a gateway installation for the park, which is going to kind of put it on the map, grab your attention while you're driving by, and be interactive and a representation of where Corry's been and where it's going. So you're not here to see me. So first I'm going to introduce Jess and Nick to share their presentation about their work. And after that, we'll introduce Andrew.
All right, hello everybody. As Chuck mentioned, my name is Jessica Taylor. It's my husband Nick, and our company is called Liquid Light Factory. So my Nick's background is actually in video production. We have a video production
because on the screen is just
studio, which
this.
our 10th year of business in. And then our partner
We
Brad,
can close this screen.
today, is actually a woodworker, metal and furniture design maker. So he is the structural part of designing some of our sculpture work. And then a little bit of background of Liquid Light Factory. The company we actually created a few months ago because we're working on a sculpture project in Erie for the Erie City Redevelopment Authority, which through that got connected with Chuck and things we have going on in Corry, and so that led us here today. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about what we have going on. I don't know if your screen's ready to share.
Yes.
So today we're very much in the brainstorming phase of our design proposal. So I'm going to go over the mood board that we created for Impact Corry. So you can skip to the slide about the company. The fonts might have gotten a little goofy just because technology and sharing files here, but so the design that you actually see on this page is a mock-up for what we're working on in Erie right now, but our niche is designing sculptures that incorporate technology with something tangible and structural. So we're like I said, with our background in video production and visual arts, that is part of the inspiration behind some of the art that we'll skip ahead to the next.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could I have your husband stand back?
This slide was just a little bit about ourselves. As mentioned, I kind of went over this, but you can see there's Brad there in the shop who's here in spirit today. All right, let's skip to the next slide. Okay, so this was our preliminary sketch of what we're looking to do here for the gateway. This is just to give an idea of the size and the placement of the gateway pillars. So the idea is having 2 giant pillars on either side of the road that would be constructed out of steel and aluminum panels that can be CNC cut into different shapes and designs, and then backed with colored acrylic plexiglass that would give a stained glass effect to the pillars. And then to the side, you can see these other partition panels that can be used as either fencing or landscape design throughout the park. And this component is something that we're looking to collaborate with the community on. So today we actually visited a bunch of kids at the YMCA to help us come up with some design ideas for what these panels could look like. We asked them what some of their favorite things are in Corry, whether it's animals, pets, friends, places, and all the kids got to sketch out some of their design ideas. And then the idea is that we'll take those and translate those into a CNC design that can then be cut out into these partitions. So if you want to skip to the next slide. So this just talks a little bit about some of the materials and the process that we're looking to do. So this is a bit of a mood board here. So at the top one is an example of what CNC metal looks like when it's cut out. And then the colored acrylic panels as seen in this design is what we would be looking to create that stained glass effect on these panels. Another inspiration design is the use of patterns on butterfly wings to incorporate in some of the designs for the pillar, since Corry is going through this rebirth and butterfly symbolize transformation. And then based on some of the mock-ups that I've seen of the park so far, it seems like there's a lot of nature incorporated in that in color. And so next slide. And then lastly, lighting, which I know Andrew's going to be able to talk a lot more about that, but lighting can enhance, all the designs for this. All of the sculptures are meant to be lit either by the sun to give that effect of stained glass, and at night they will be lit up throughout the park to create safe walkways, but also add that color and kind of placemaking throughout the park. So yeah, and then Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about why we want to get community involvement?
Yeah, so as Jeff mentioned this morning, we kind of had a morning of, we went to the Historical Society and got to see all of the great history and the locomotives, the oil refinery history. We also got to go to the YMCA and meet with the kids, the next generation of
Because she's waiting.
Corry
but you can't
residents.
see it.
And kind of our background as documentary filmmakers, we sort of look at our work as a little bit of a mosaic of a bunch of different people's stories. So when we create a documentary, that's usually our approach. So with this, we wanted to do something similar in a physical, visual way. And so with the panels, we're hoping to gather some individual perspectives, inspiration. At the YMCA, we had kids pick their favorite thing about living in Corry, or it might be their dog or something personal to them. But another part of this might be visiting other school age kids that might be in high school, or other local artists that might be able to contribute to a panel. A lot of this is still in the works, but the most important thing is we want to make sure that this is representative of the community, and that when people walk through this, they hopefully see a bit of themselves in this end product.
Yeah, and then lastly, because this park is on a bike trail, we also hope that as people pass through Corry or visiting Corry, that they can get a sense of the culture of the community by getting to see little pieces of that story and the mosaic of the people here. So, but yeah, thank you all for having us today, and yeah, we'll pass it off.
You still have questions?
Oh, there's. I'm used to being behind the cameras. All right.
Yes, obviously open to.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions or thoughts, feel free to share.
Physically, are we talking about this area right here?
As far as the pillars go, I believe so. Chuck, is it this intersection here?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be right on flanking either side of the road here. So yeah, any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I was a little late coming in. Is this lighting changed?
So this is something that Andrew's going to talk about next, but this is actually a good representation of kind of like the shape as far as what we were thinking for if pillars go on either side. So, and then this, you know, we're all on the same wavelength here as far as, yeah, like different cutouts and things throughout that can be lit up. And then, as I mentioned, if you can visualize, there would be colored plexi behind the cutouts that give it that stained glass look.
Yeah, we kind of discovered we have similar brainwaves going on, which is great.
Yeah,
What's the, I mean, I don't know how long they've been outside for, but what's just like the durability? I'm sure you're like aluminum won't rust, steel will rust, I'm sure it's coated, like just like maintenance, upkeep, like, I don't know, just practicality.
yeah. So I can speak a little bit to that. The third party Brad, who's not here, is definitely the one who specializes in that side of it. But yeah, the ACM material that is what we'd be planning on using is used a lot in fabricating exterior signage for businesses and things like that. And it's durable, it's coated, shouldn't rust, and it's easy to use with like a CNC machine. And then as far as the structure in any steel that may be used in that, yeah, it would need to be coated to make sure that it's, you know, lasts and isn't going to rust or create, you know, anything that would necessarily need replaced anytime soon. So.
And for this project, we're looking to work with local manufacturers to create the new product, just like the benches and the bike racks. We're trying to make as much of it here as possible.
Yeah, and we are, we're from the region. We all were born and raised in Erie, and supporting local businesses and sourcing from that is, you know, we're very passionate about that. You know, and another thing that I'd like to look into with this project for the pillars would be potentially seeing if we could find any reclaimed materials that could be used in that as well. Could be a way to incorporate some of the history of things from Corry. So,
Do you have any kind of representation of what the size, like the pillars would be?
so that'll be the next phase. So we will, from here, we're, you know, gathering some input and ideas from the community, actually come up with the design itself. But we like it to be, you know, as big as possible so that while you're, you know, driving through, you know, should be, you know, look sizable enough to, but blended with the surrounding buildings. And some of that may need to be, you know, talk to PennDOT and things like that to make sure it's, you know, up to whatever their codes are or something like that. And we have an installation set up in Erie at Feed Media Arts Center where we have some of our other work on display there. So if you check us out on Instagram, it's Liquid Light Factory. You can see a few examples of our other work as well. And our website is liquidlightfactory.com.
Well, with that as well, we have been working with PennDOT and the rail lines on this. So size, we will also have to check with them because even our fencing, we have to be careful. I think it was either 30 or 50 feet back from the intersection because the engineers need to be able to see. So as soon as we get all those clearances, we'll have more to reveal.
Yeah, that'll help inform what the design will actually look like.
And I'd love to hear from you guys what you think is most important. If you were, think of it as a totem pole. I mean, totem poles are very symbolic about telling the story of the tribe. I'm kind of looking at these as modern day totems. What do you think about Corry should be represented on our totem or our liquid light power, I guess? Oh, that's interactive. perspective. What would you like to see? What do you feel is important to say about us to people visiting?
Is it saying words or just picture?
Pictures. It's like the McDonald's
That's a lot of
registers.
words.
Well, the climax engine for sure, because that's been a big part of Corry. And typical train building structures, some that are no longer here, they had higher ones, but that was a big part of the town, you know, the intersections all revolving around these things. And the museum itself, it's quite the lovely fixture that they have out there. I don't want to work with it. Has amazing things in it.
I bet you could get a bunch of like, reusable rubber stuff, ties, and also rails, railroad steel.
Could be,
Incorporating it
Yeah.
as opposed to just a picture.
yeah, well, and you know, a thought to would be like a pedestal or something that it's on as well, that, you know, something like that could be cool. Yeah, we're hoping to, as we develop this, continue this as an open conversation with the community, and, you know, we want, you know, ideas and input, and, you know, it's our job to be the vessel, you know, this is, you know, these are for your town, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're getting, you know, everyone's vision is incorporated in this.
Think the transformation. Something that shows the journey of that.
Yeah.
Their seeds turn fruits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Symbolic of growth and change.
Yeah, that's, I think, could be a lot of things that are just symbolic of where Corry's at, where it's going. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the little kids, they were like cows, goats, pigs. Like, we have a lot of farm animals here. Yeah, cows are the most popular ones.
Well, and I don't know what the image is, but since I'm here, I feel like I belong here. It's a place where we work together and we roll up our sleeves and get it done. And I would love to tell that story, because no matter what we become, I think that's why we're a cool place. Is we're neighbors, we help each other, and we figure out how to make it work.
It's an adaptability sense
Yeah.
of that, yeah.
And the brick streets, Sharon, right? Come on, speak up. girl.
Incorporate those.
Actually have a bunch of bread, stars. They're on here.
Oh. Cool.
What was that?
I said, I have a lot of brick, miles and miles worth.
Yes. Those are actually, our trail benches have been designed, and the base of them is gonna be like, a Gadian box, you know, the boxes of rocks that you see along the highway, that's a Gadian box. The Gadian, something like that. We're actually gonna put the Corry bricks around the outside, so the whole base will show the Corry bricks. Thanks. Any others? I'll stop drilling. Okay, cool. Thank you,
Alright,
guys.
yeah, thank
And
you.
for Corry today.
Yes, it's
Absolutely.
been our pleasure.
And now, this is a person that I looked for any excuse to work with. We haven't. Wait, should I do this? We met in 88. When I left college and started working at Pittsburgh Public Theater, Andrew was the assistant lighting designer. What was the title back then?
I was the national electrician associate.
Yes, and Andrew's gone on to an incredible career designing all around the world and works out of Pittsburgh. And when we threw this project at him, he didn't flinch and is willing to drive into our Corry Winners to be here. And he brought, I will let him introduce Pete because I didn't ask Pete's name because I'm rude. So they brought some products to show us. There's been a design, there'll also be a notes or PowerPoint for his work. But they're actually going to show us what these lights can do that they're thinking about in the park. So Andy, I keep going back and forth. Informal. How I know you.
Hi, good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here. And yes, my name is Andy. Formally, yes, my mother lost the name right, so it's always Andrew. Grew up with no museum. I go by Andy. Could you pull up the PowerPoint?
Sure.
As Chuck mentioned, she and I have known each other for a long, long time. And kept in touch over the years. And when she called me about this project, it was pre-pandemic. So that's how long we've chatted about this. Consequently, most of my work has come from the theatrical world. I've done a little bit of architectural and retail, but doing a park like this was so exciting to me. Yes, I could jump into. So, oh, this is going to be exciting. I came up.
She lost it. It's up and something.
I came up back in the spring to sit down with Chuck, with Wendy, to talk about a number of things, to have the inspiration sort of set upon me and have everyone think that set upon me so that I can sort of go back, ruminate in my laboratory and think about everything. As you can see, this was one of Wendy's original designs that she had drawn up. Some things that changed minorly, and as we go through, we'll chat about that. What has been articulated to me is that side of the park will be the first phase of it, and this side of the park will be the second phase of it. So I've broken this down into phase 1 and phase 2. I think that part of this world is all about activating the park with style and with color. So if you could go to the next slide, thank you. So here you can see some of the inspiration and some ideas that were sort of brought. You can see how trees can be lit and how interesting and fantastic that could appear. There was marketing done from in fact Corry, and that was given to me so that I could read about that. I'm particularly fond of the little O that is the train, front of the train. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I just love it. So I want to incorporate it a lot. Next slide. So even though I just met Jessica and Nick an hour and a half ago, I swear to God, I think that we have known each other all our lives. And the fact that they wanted to create these two sort of towers that enter into this, I mentioned to Pete on the way up that I'm particularly fond of a certain part of this mosaic, and that I wanted to use it as a gateway to each side of the park. So it's kind of funny how they wanted to have this, and I'm like thinking of the same thing, and we've never met each other.
And I didn't tell about your work.
So what we have here is a typical bollard, and these are used quite often in parking situations and public situations. This particular design is not emblematic of what we want. I would want to use that little train, the O of the Corry, and have that repeated across the board. If we were so inclined, we could do two sides that way, and we could do two sides where if you look across and you see the gear over in the Corry, over on that, we could do that as well. They don't have to be all identical or symmetrical. But these mosaic montages are, as you can see, 12, 14, 16 feet tall. And so you could have the design at the bottom and a white light at the top. And of course, the white light could, be supporting sort of, comfort, safety, clarity, so that you see where you're going. Also inside of here, you can change this to be white as well. It doesn't have to be color. And it doesn't have to be color changing like it's constantly doing right now. That's not my intention. That's what the manufacturer is allowing us to use. So the idea for me would be that we would use an aluminum sort of unit. Because I think that that light coloration and that material will certainly survive quite a long time. And it will just be, it'll be better in the day and it'll be better at night. I'm not opposed to the gray, I'm not opposed to bronze, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that in this particular application, I think aluminum base would be a better aspect of using that. Could you go to the next slide? So here we are. Here's Center Avenue, Center Street.
Where's that?
Street, thank you. And so right here and here would be those mosaic montages that would enter this way into the park and into the restroom area. And then where you see these little black stars, those are representative of a typical standard bollard size. And those would, be, as I said, we could use, the gear, we could use the train emblem, we could use both. We could use both on one panel, so they were train gear, gear, train, however we want to make that. And I'd love to hear your input on that. Across the back of the building, it would face this side of the street. I would want to use a product that I'm going to illustrate over here. And so this is a typical strip, and it's color changing. It can be, a variety of colors we want it to be. But as you can see, architecturally, it adds a lot of interest to the wood panel. And of course, with the brick over there, light on brick is always fantastic. So as another aspect from this side, you get beauty, on all four sides. There are, Pete, would you turn on the par? So my colleague Pete Neal was fortunate to allow us to have these units. So as you can see, this little unit, which is IP65 rated, so it's weatherproof. It can totally stand water, snow, ice for a number of years in the applications. Is it 100,000 hours, Pete, or 50,000 hours?
It's 100,000 hours to 70% off.
Thank you. So as you might know, an LED lamp is not your normal Edison filament, and it doesn't just go poof. So an LED lamp over time loses a bit of its intensity. You can't see it, but after a number of tests and various manufacturers getting together and agreeing on what is that situation. So you're going to get 100,000 hours out of this before you'll get a degradation that is really noticeable. And so with this particular unit, it can be color changing. It can be whatever it wants to be in terms of that color. Now, I'm going to pick out some obvious holidays. Valentine's Day, the park goes pink. 4th of July, it's red, white, and blue. Maybe, we could do a little display where the trees are acting like fireworks. Christmas, we're red and green. Halloween, it's orange. I mean, we can do that. But during any other day of the week, I want it to be a little subtler and not so in your face, constantly doing anything like this is doing right now. I think it's something that is a little more supportive of Mother Nature, of the beauty of what is there and what will be created is really more important. And so consequently, from that aspect, it's going to be just something that you can rely on, that it's there, you appreciate its beauty, you know what it is, you can enjoy it when you want to enjoy it. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I just kept breaking down, Wendy's beautiful drawing into areas so that I could talk about that, talk about where colors might be located, where the colors might be located for the trees. And you can see, just factory, photos. Next slide, please. Now this is where we get to the next building down. And I want to repeat the idea of the wall wash. So that we could have whatever color we wanted to have, and if we just wanted to be white, we could have it be white. Or if we wanted to have it be purple or pink or whatever, we could do that color. Again, because we have trees in the way, all along the way, the tree would be uplit as well. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, the alley of trees went away. But these fantastic illuminated benches could still be placed in any place that we want them. And Chuck is very fond of these. So, I will just point out that even though the tree situation went away, we can still find spots for these acrylic benches. They're underlit. They weigh 220 pounds. They're not easily moved. You can't just like kick it over and like, no, I'm gonna take that home with me. Mm-mm. This is it's a hefty piece of equipment, shall we say. Next slide, please. And then we get down to the nitty gritty where there's going to be a stage. And the gentleman over here gave me a fantastic idea, and I can tell Jessica and Nick about this idea. So I mentioned this to Chuck in communication that so in a theatrical situation, you have light that is coming in for the front of the actors, singers, performer spaces. And so that is a front of house position. Going off of the trees that were there, I wanted to create sort of a tree sculptural aspect where the lights could be hung off of that. So that during the day, it just looked like a bare tree. But it became twofold that it could create the ability to front light the performance space as well as then be uplit at any other point. So using the railroad tie and railroad lines, I think that that could be a great medium to then create a sculpture of this tree out of that. Sorry, I don't have a picture, but use your imagination. Thank you. So is there anything that we want to chat about on the first part? Great, let's move into part two. So once again, as you can see, Wendy has this lovely rendering of what is happening inside the park. This is something that I asked of Chuck. I understand the importance of billboards. And I'll leave it just like that. Okay, so I still want to push a lot of style and color. And in terms of that idea, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. It was explained to me that this was sort of a gaming area where people could sit down and play checkerboard, bridge, whatever. Kids could bring, board games. It could be a number of things. Would you turn on the larger slide? Thank you.
Really large one or just a little?
A big one. So let me just stand this up for a second. So as you can see, this particular unit has a lot more brightness to it than the other units. And so in knowing that there were going to be some larger trees, we would need to have a certain size, force and amount of lumens to light the tree. So that's why some of the trees over here, which are different from the trees that line alongside either of that, would have to be treated with a different style. Again, we could still have the cars. And then in the pathway, I have a number of ideas. Some of them could be in ground, some of them could be along a curb, and I would love to hear input about that. So, for example, we could go back to this unit, and this unit could be in the walkway itself. That might be disturbing for people as they walk along and have light in their face. Or we could put it alongside a curb so it just washes across the sidewalk. There's a number of products that this company provides, and we can sort of go back and forth about which is a better application for this situation. Next slide, please. When we get down here, it's a similar sort of situation, and then this idea, this particular unit, is another unit that I would possibly want to utilize. And again, I would want it to be mounted on the side of a curb or side of the walkway so that it shines across that. I love light, and I could talk about it for hours, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I will say that I don't like light in my face, and so you know, as a lighting designer, I normally have to have light in my face a certain amount of time, and it just irritates the hell out of me. And so I assume that everyone feels the same way, and so that's why, as much as I would love to have some of the path illuminated, I want to be very cognizant and very careful of people and how they move about for safety, not only for security. Next slide, please. And then we get down to the gazebo area. And there was an idea that Chuck told me about back in May. And so I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'm just letting her know so that she can correct me. As a part of this, the idea was that there could be small LED fixtures overhead, and that as people utilize the gazebo, they would activate and actually turn the lights on by their physical movements, which I thought was a really great idea. And it sort of puts you to understand the power of yourself and how you can change the world. That's it for me on this one. Thank you. So, open for discussion, open for ideas, please.
I like what you said about the pathways, because I don't like it shining up at me.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the spill across, but what does everybody else think? I don't know, that's just me.
Curving. So that's a problem.
It's yeah. I understand totally.
No flashing lights.
Not even for fireworks.
But yeah, I like that idea, it's nice, smooth, lighting, soft. But, you know, fan of.
Yeah, I don't see Las Vegas outside here. To me, we could go back to, you know, to the park that was lit with all those trees and that photo, and have that for, you know, 300 days out of the year, and I'd be very happy and very pleasantly enjoying that. I grew up in a small town. I didn't grow up here in Corry. I grew up in a small town of Freeport. 2,500 people, 7 churches, 7 bars. The churches did not match up to the bars. I don't want to make that kind of association. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there just happened to be 7 different churches and 7 different bars. And so, you know, it was a great little town to grow up in. You know, sidewalks, stop sign, 1 street light.
In a practical sense.
Yes.
From a technological call, how do these come on?
So,
Somebody have to flip a switch, or are these automatic, or who, like, cause I think it looks great, but how does it literally light that part?
well, there's a great electrical contractor that we'll work with. And there's a control. It's basically a burn. And it's a program. And it runs off of a computer. And it sends the information across a little cable that everything is connected to. As Pete and I were driving up, I actually had this conversation about, should the brain be located in the restaurant brew house? Should the brain be located over here in the office so that someone can turn it on? You can set it up to run off electrical switches and timers where you have it, you know, it's just a clock that runs continuously. It's like the atomic clock. But obviously we know the computers hiccup. So when a computer hiccups, what you got to do? You got to reset and start from scratch. And so in order for that to happen, I kind of feel that it would be best to have the brain in this room or wherever Impact Corey's office is located, so that someone, can just restart the computer if they need to reboot the computer.
Thanks, I'm just curious.
Certainly, it's a great question.
Wendy texted me and said, you might need to bring back the other trees. I want this idea. And she said, through the owl, she can't see the lighting. We will take photos, but would you mind, could we turn on each one separately and you speak by each one and the owl will go to where you
Yes,
speak?
yes. So Pete, hit the little part. So Wendy, I hope you can see me and or the light. Or I'll just hold up the light really close to me.
Actually, aim it at that wall. It was picking up that. Perfect.
Great. So this is a little par lamp. And intensity wise, it's a fantastic unit. There are other units that are brighter. Okay. How's it gonna pick up is it gonna pick up the wall washer? And the little strip?
Maybe if I talk over here.
How's that, Wendy? Are we getting anything?
Okay. No, because it's.
Yeah.
It's tough. That's the wall stuff. I think we can show her these though. And we'll get photos.
Okay.
I'll take some videos.
Let's go
when we're
through
done.
this. Thank you.
Okay, so, yes.
Is it picking?
Yeah.
Okay, great. This is a sort of mid-range unit, very similar to the PAR, just more LED individual facets. And then Pete, let's go to our large unit. And well, you can see my hand. Nope. Darn it. No. Sorry, Wendy.